You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Scan the QR code and start streaming RAV anywhere you want.
Real America's Voice, available whenever you need us.
It's never been easier to stay connected with the voices you trust.
RAV on iHeart means you can take us with you wherever you go.
This is huge. The truth on iHeart. Ready whenever you are.
From Charlie Kirk to Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec to Grant Stinchfield, you'll find all your favorite RAV hosts in one place.
You can listen on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or Amazon. RAV is now available everywhere you get your podcasts. All you need to do is scan the QR code right now.
Download the iHeart app today and get ready for Real America's Voice.
Scan the QR code and join the RAV.
Good evening, America. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you from a snowy nation's capital today. Yeah, the snow is falling in Washington, D.C., but we're nice and warm because we're inside the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee, of course, the official coffee of Just the News. Go there right now, point your camera at that QR code, or use the promo code JustNews when you go to wired2fishcoffee.com. You get 10% off on a company that returns its profits back to things like Christian faith organizations and conservation, two things that mean a lot to me. Go support them. They're great supporters of this network and Just the News. All right, we've got a great show ahead of you today. President Trump was meeting with the leaders of Jordan. Yes, he's serious about developing Gaza into an American entertainment platform and moving the Palestinians elsewhere. He's making that point with leaders in the region today. Amanda, we've got a great show. You just feel the ground shaking here all day long in Washington.
Absolutely.
There's something going on every couple hours.
Yeah, every day there is something out of the White House. Every day there is something out of Doge. Every day there is something out of Congress, something that is moving and shaking the ground beneath us. Today, even though the snow is falling, we managed to actually get a few interviews in with members of Congress before they left town, because I do think that over the next few hours, this place is going to become a ghost town.
Oh, yeah. It's going to empty faster than Christmas vacation. That's what happens when snow happens. We've got some great people. And I think the thing that's going to make the ground shake the most in the next 6 months is the shrinkage of government. How are we going to get to a more sensible budget? We've got a great lineup of people to introduce you with that, starting off with our first guest. All right, joining us now, a man who has a plan to get the budget under control in Washington, and also who is digging for all the documents and transparency we've been denied in the American public for a long time. He is a senator from the great state of Wisconsin and the chairman of one of the most important committees in the Senate, the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, good to have you back.
Well, John, hello, Amanda. I hope you're doing well.
We are, sir, and glad that you're on the show today. You have put together, more than any other lawmaker I know in Washington, a comprehensive plan to get fiscal sanity back into our budget. I think you have 6,000 line items that you've identified. Bring us up to speed on what started as an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, now a fully formed plan.
Well, what I've done is, first of all, pointed out the insanity of going from $4.4 trillion of spending in 2019 pre-pandemic to averaging 6.5 over the last 5 years. This year, we'll probably hit about $7.3 trillion worth of spending. So that's 60% higher than we were spending in 2019. Our population's grown 2%. Of course, we had Biden inflation thrown in there. So what I did over the Christmas break is I went back to search for different pre-pandemic levels of spending, things that had broad bipartisan support, or when we actually had a surplus. So first one identified was 1998 under Bill Clinton. He spent a little under $1.7 trillion. And what I did is I exempted Social Security, Medicare, and current interest. I used 2025 numbers for those. But all the other spending categories I increased by the growth in population, then by inflation. And so you take the $1.7 trillion of Clinton, that adjusts up to about $5.5 trillion, which just happens to be what Biden was projecting for revenue for this fiscal year. We'd have a balanced budget. So again, using Clinton spending levels, plussing them up for inflation and population growth, using today's Social Security, Medicare, and today's interest, you balance the budget. Okay, if that's too reasonable for you, I looked at Obama in 2014. Same process, went from about 3.6 trillion in spending. That'd be about 6.2 trillion. Still more than $1 trillion less than we're spending today. Doesn't balance the budget, but gets us a whole lot closer. The other one was just take a look at 2019, 4.4 trillion, increase that. That ends up being about 6.5 trillion. I think that's still too much. But again, those are three options. The fourth option I threw out there was what did President Trump, what was he budgeting for 2025? If you use that, those numbers, exempt Social Security, Medicare, and interest, use today's figures for that, that's about 6.1 trillion. That's the number that Senator Graham is going to put into our Senate budget resolution. How you get there, that's the devil's in the details. But again, what I've done is I've printed out 5,000 to 6,000 line item, the actual total outlays from both Clinton, Obama, and Trump. We've got all the line items there. The budget's set. You can just accept those spending levels as we did in 1998, in 2014, 2019, inflated by population and inflation. You got your numbers, but no further work done. Or needs to be done, particularly when you recognize, John, so many of these programs that seem to be just, you can't touch them. Right. They're not even authorized by Congress.
Isn't that amazing?
That's how out of control the federal government is. So again, we're spending $7.3 trillion this year. We'll bring in $5 to $5.5 trillion worth of revenue. Deficits of close to $2 trillion. And unfortunately, this concept is gaining traction. But look what the House is arguing over. They're looking at reducing spending maybe by $250 billion. I mean, I'm laying out proposals that would really reduce it by $1.5 trillion or a full trillion, again, using Clinton and Obama spending levels. Again, this place is insane.
Dean, speaking of out-of-control government programs and agencies, I want to ask you about something that we learned in the last 24 hours, because it's great to balance the budget and have it zeroed out on both sides of the ledger. But per President Trump's executive order from last week, FEMA is only supposed to be sending monies and resources to issues that affect the American people. And yet we just found out that it appears $59 million to pay for illegal immigrants staying in pretty swanky hotels in New York City. What can Congress do to claw back that money?
Well, there were reports out of the House and some other outside groups that it was costing all levels of government something like $150 to $160 billion per year to take care of the open border that the Biden and his Democrat allies in Congress opened up. So it's a massive expense. What Doge is uncovering, whether it's the USAID or now in FEMA, it's literally just the tip of the iceberg. So, from my standpoint, what we first need is we need the public, as outraged as people like I am, about the grotesque explosion in the size of the federal government, how it is taking your hard-earned taxpayer money or borrowing it and mortgaging your children's future and just wasting on things that you would never even come close to supporting. So again, federal government's completely out of control. We need the American public on our side. Elon Musk, by the way, I hear people just screaming about Elon Musk, unelected. Well, all these bureaucrats that are burrowed into these agencies, they're completely unelected. They're unaccountable to a duly elected president of the United States. Courts are protecting them now. I would much rather put my faith in an unelected Elon Musk, a genius at squeezing out inefficiencies out of organizations and processes. I'd much rather put my faith in Elon and a duly elected president elected to do exactly this than the bureaucrats that in Trump's first term basically worked to undermine and sabotage his administration. So, again, God bless Elon Musk, Donald Trump for bold, swift, decisive action. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to turn to something. You've been fighting for transparency for every moment you've been in the Senate. You're going after some documents with Facebook on censorship they've now admitted to. I know it's important. If you were to come up with a list of maybe the 5 or 6 most important set of documents that President Trump or Congress could force into the American public the next few months, what would you put on that list?
Well, I'd start with the JFK assassination. information. I think it's time for the American public to understand the truth there.
Yep.
But specifically in terms of what I requested, the last 50 pages of Fauci's emails that we have not been able to see unredacted. The redacted version was incriminating enough. The 17 pages of talking points, when the CDC, FDA found out about myocarditis in children, in young men particularly, from Israel, as well as their own safety surveillance systems in early 2021, within months of the rollout, instead of doing what they said they were going to do, which is issue an alert on the Health Alert Network, they prepared a 17-page talking memo. They provided that under FOIA, completely redacted. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see all their analysis of their safety surveillance systems, their proportional reporting ratios, their empirical Bayesian analysis. This should be the public's information. This should have been completely transparent, made available years ago. They haven't made it available. I've requested information on what they knew about the hot lots. Yep. It's pretty obvious that some of these lots of the injection can cause more adverse events than others. We need information on that as well. So across the board in these federal health agencies, but again, they're loose ends that we need to tie up in terms of the weaponization of the government, out of the FBI, the Department of Justice. I mean, there's, as I've said repeatedly, I'm a mosquito in a nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment.
Indeed it is. Speaking of digging for information, can we get a status update on your letter to Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg regarding the COVID censorship?
Well, we have heard from representatives of Facebook. They understand now that they need to take this very seriously. And the reason they need to is what they did, apparently under the direction of federal officials, is they took down these group chats of the vaccine injured. People that were being gaslit, they were being ignored by their own health providers. They couldn't get treatment. They were suffering severe adverse events. And the only sense of support they had was through these Facebook chat groups, and after my panels, those chat groups were taken down. And the result of that is people committed suicide. They had no support whatsoever. They were in utter despair. And the result of Facebook's action at the behest of the federal officials was that people took their own lives. So I made it very clear to Facebook that I am dead serious about finding out what happened, who within their organization participated, why they participated in taking down these groups repeatedly, and at whose direction from the federal government was this. So again, I made it very clear that this isn't just some little request that they can try and paper over and provide me a few documents. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to do transcribed interviews with the Facebook representatives who in the federal government forced this censorship on Facebook, and as a result in the deaths of American citizens who were injured by the vaccine that was pushed and mandated on them. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Lethal consequences to infringing one of our most basic rights. That's something that I know you feel very passionate about. Senator, it is such a great honor to have you on the show. Every time you come on, we learn something really important. Great to have you on, sir.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, folks, coming up after the break, Congressman Eric Burlison. He's making waves with a lot of his good oversight work. We're going to have him up next right after these commercial messages. Hey, it's a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do as well, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to simply go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you need to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy, as well as your family. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From the flu to strep throat, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again. Start at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/justnews today and order. That's twc.health/justnews and use the promo code JUSTNEWS to save 10% off.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise, continuing our reporting of all of the waste and abuse of our taxpayer dollars within the federal government. And it's very interesting because there are a lot of people up on Capitol Hill who don't really want any of this stuff to ever come to light. And that should tell us something, shouldn't it? Joining us now is someone who wants all of that government waste out there in the open for the American people to see. He is a congressman from Missouri, Eric Burleson, and he also sits on that very important Doge committee, of which they have their first hearing, I believe, tomorrow. Congressman, welcome.
Great to be on. Thank you, Amanda.
Great to see you, sir. So we've got that first committee hearing tomorrow. What do you expect to come out of it?
I know that we have been doing a lot of research. Marjorie has done a fantastic job in organizing, the committee. We've had several meetings, and so honestly, she's probably the most organized committee subcommittee chairperson that I've seen. Probably the chair that I've seen. So I'm really impressed with her work ethic, and I think that we're going to have a great outcome. What I also can expect is the Democrats to lose their minds. And I don't understand what's happening. I think that, there was once a time when you had Bill Clinton and Al Gore, even Barack Obama, championing efforts to find waste, fraud, and abuse. And yet now, if we're going to do that, they're just going to start screaming like a child throwing a tantrum. It makes no sense.
Yeah, the reaction has been, I think, counterproductive to the American people. They look at why are they fighting over things that we want to fix? It's amazing to watch. One of the things that the Doge team has already uncovered is FEMA being misused to basically be in the migrant trafficking business. We have a story coming out tomorrow that looks at billions of dollars, including from FEMA, HHS, Homeland, going to Catholic charities to create that migrant crisis that we've been through the last 4 years. Religious nonprofits, luxury hotels, all sorts of weird conglomerates in this sort of large trafficking operation to move migrants to the interior of the country. How important is it to expose that? What do you expect we'll find when we're all done?
I expect that we're going to find that the federal government has been wasting tens of billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, and putting the American people in great debt. And it's really almost treasonous, what has happened. These organizations bringing people in, including people that were on terror watch lists into this country, providing them housing under your, all paid for with your tax dollars. It's a betrayal of the American people, and I think that the American people should be angry when they see what we've uncovered.
Very important.
Congressman, I had a former Democrat text me last night, and she voted for Trump this time around, and she said, with everything that Doge is continuing to reveal, all of the waste, fraud, and abuse, how can the American taxpayers be expected to turn in their money on April 15th? Americans still have to pay their taxes, and yet the government can continue swindling that money. What do you tell people like that with respect to paying their taxes when they are coming from a base knowledge that so much of it is being spent frivolously anyway?
Yeah, what I tell them is I agree with you. In fact, that's why I ran for office, to try to shrink the size of government, shrink it down, because the smaller the government, the more manageable it is, the less waste there's going to be, and the more that people can understand where the dollars are going. But we have got a federal government that is too big for its people. The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen, and so our goal should be to find, this reconciliation process, for example. We're fighting, conservatives, fiscal hawks are trying to fight tooth and nail to make sure that we don't exacerbate the debt and the deficit, that we actually cut spending, because every dollar, look, spending is causing inflation. We're taxing the American people through inflation or through directly through their taxes. Either way, the American people are paying for this bloated, huge government, and our goal is to reduce it, and that has to include large spending cuts.
Yeah, very important. You're a member of that Freedom Caucus that has come up with, I think, a very important budget resolution roadmap. I think just under $500 billion in spending cuts right away, over nearly $300 billion in deficit reduction immediately. Tell us a little bit about that plan and where it fits in the overall dynamics of Congress right now.
Yeah, I think that what we are recognizing is that it's going to be really difficult. It's clearly difficult to juggle all of the issues when it comes that we're trying to accomplish. And so let's eat the elephant one bite at a time. The first one being a skinny but reconciliation bill that does a lot of Trump's promises, fixes the border, dedicates some money to the border wall and to ICE. It's going to secure or add some money to plus up our military, but then we're also going to rescind a lot of money that has been wasted by Biden in the Green New Deal tax credits and some of the other expansions that Biden has done while he's been in office, including Thrifty Food Plan in food stamps, things like that. And that it helps us, overall, that first reconciliation bill that achieves all of that already gets us, builds that muscle memory of spending cuts, of making spending cuts. And that will set us up so that the next reconciliation bill, where we do the tax cuts, it will give Congress a little bit more courage and clarity as to how much we need to cut in spending. That's the idea. But when you put it all together in one bill, I think that some of the moderates are trying to keep it into one bill so that they can pressure fiscal hawks like myself to ignore spending cuts or not, accept the fact that we're not going to that they don't want to do spending cuts, and convince people like me or compel me to vote for it just because it has border language in it. So that gives you kind of inside baseball as to what's happening up here. At the end of the day, we just need to hold firm and say, I don't care if it's two bills, one bill, it has to be deficit neutral. It cannot exacerbate the deficit and the debt. Mm-hmm. And if anything, we need to start paying down our debt.
Wow.
When it comes to deficit neutrality, because I think last year for Speaker Johnson, it took a little while for him to get his legs established underneath him. But the courage that you just talked about, that it feels like Republicans have now, even though it's a slim majority, does it feel like Speaker Johnson is now ready to actually bring that neutrality to the spending bills and the budgets so that you can actually deliver on that and Speaker Mike Johnson can keep the gavel and you guys can keep the Republican majority in 2026?
It's yet to be seen. They've been working on this for quite some time. We've had so many meetings, I can't keep track. But look, Johnson wants flexibility. He wants to have a large, range here. He wants to set the bar, the minimums in the instructions that he sends to the committees. He wants to have a low bar, and he claims that gives him flexibility. And I can understand that. And he's asking for us, to enter, that we would have an agreement or a blood oath that we're going to get to $2.5 trillion in spending cuts, which is what we had previously agreed to. The problem with that is that I've been promised to before. I've been there and done that, and I've got the battle scars. We were promised that we were not going to have any more Christmas omnibus bills, and then we just went through one under Mike Johnson this last December. I've been promised that we weren't going to fund Ukraine's border until we fixed our own border, and we saw us all, our Congress go back on that promise. We were promised that we were going to end the business of doing supplementals that were not paid for, and yet we broke that promise too. So I'm from Missouri. You're going to have to show me or demonstrate to me that you truly do want to cut spending, and if his effort is to keep the bar low, I've got to say I don't really know that I can believe you that we're going to get to a $2.5 trillion spending cut.
Yeah, that's a really important thing. Real quickly, sir, you got an important subsidy in your crosshairs, EV, unplugging the EV tax credits. If we want to buy an EV, they pay the full price, that's fine, but the taxpayer shouldn't subsidize it. That's something I know you're championing right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We've spent, I think it's close to $10 billion, between $8 and $10 billion with a B, to fund, I think, maybe just a handful, like a half dozen charging stations. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's a great example of how this government can't do anything well. So look, if the private sector and businesses want to put up EV charging stations, God bless them. That's what America's about. But don't take my taxpayers' dollars. People who are driving, mostly the most popular vehicle in Southwest Missouri is a Ford F-150. Everybody driving a Ford F-150 sending their tax dollars to fund somebody's EV charging station. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that it is.
Yeah,
crazy.
As a general rule, if you want something to prosper, give it to the private sector. If you want something to punish, give it to the government, as you just highlighted perfectly in all of these initiatives. Congressman Eric Burlison, thank you so much for being here, sir. We'll get you back on again very soon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we are going to take a very quick commercial break. We'll be back on the other side.
Hey, folks, did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity? That's an amazing figure, but you know the bad news? Criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Scammers can transfer your title right out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against your equity, even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox. Now, that is something you don't want to have happen, leaving you, of course, when that happens, in a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, the U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So when was the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer is never. And that's exactly why scammers are counting on you to fail. The good news is for 2025, Home Title Lock is offering you 25% off. And you also get a free title history report when you go to HometitleLock.com and use my promo code JTN25. Now make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. One more time, go to HometitleLock.com, use the promo code JTN25. Hi, folks. Welcome back. Yesterday, you heard the EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, tell you that artificial intelligence is a top priority, even for America's Environmental Agency. Why? Because we're in a battle with China for supremacy, and AI is going to change our life in ways big and small for the next generation or two of Americans. Our next guest has been thinking about this and putting it into perspective. He's the author of an amazing new book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. He's also the CEO of advertising agency DMA United. He is Mark Beckman. He joins us for the first time. Mark, great to have you on the show.
John, thank you so much for having me. Amanda, it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to have you on. This book is so important. I think a lot of Americans hear AI and that sounds familiar. I don't know what it really is. It's going to change the course of humanity, isn't it?
I definitely think so, John. I think it will change the course of humanity imminently. My prediction is within 3 to 5 years, we'll see an entire new community if American ingenuity is unlocked in a safe way, in a smart way. But we'll see all sectors of our community improved as a result of this new technology. And then in turn, we'll see quality of life for Americans improved as well. What does that mean? Access to more value financially, access to more healthcare, access to more food. All of these issues could really be cured, enhanced, and beyond. So in my book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, I really focus on the beginner. Your viewers who are super intelligent, I love your show, as you know, they're curious people, and they want to learn how they can use artificial intelligence to improve their lives as it relates to their family, their career, and their community. And in my book, I break down every sector and give the reader the tools needed whereby she or he can implement artificial intelligence in a meaningful way today.
Awesome. I just got to get it to take my garbage out. If we can get it to take my garbage out, we are living good. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure Judy
John,
will be very appreciative.
That's coming.
It's coming. I know. I'm going to just have a robot that's going to take it out.
It is. It's going to be an affordable way. I predict, actually, I talk about robots. My book was #1 in AI, in crypto, and in robotics. And I predict in my book that we will have shared robotics within communities within the next 2 to 3 years. And a lot of the monotonous tasks, from taking out your garbage to cooking to folding laundry, are going to be assumed by this legion, these robots that are going to enter our lives. And I really believe it. It's not going to be like the Jetsons, but it's going to be done in an affordable way, and it's going to free up time so that you could spend more time with your family, being entrepreneurial, creating, doing the things that you really enjoy doing, John.
I love it.
Mark, I want to ask you about the safety aspect, because I would like for it to be more Jetsons and less Ready Player One. There is a happy medium there where we can allow AI to flourish to truly help humankind, at the same time retaining privacy and all of the things that are very, very dear and core to this country and its values. What are some of the most essential things that we have to do safety-wise before we implement AI into pretty much everything?
Well, as a nation, we need to understand that we're in a war. We are in a real AI war with not just China, but other nefarious actors, including Iran, North Korea, and beyond. And that war comes in different shapes and sizes, Amanda. It could be an issue of invading your privacy and taking data and using it against you and then in turn against our country. But another area which is really fascinating is what I look at, how AI is going to impact warfare. In my book, I talk about the evolution of warfare, and I talk about the idea of being in this post-nuclear era, where now smaller nations with less resources, less finances, and therefore less access to military weapons, are now going to challenge America, because artificial intelligence is fueling more efficiencies with, for example, drones. People can use drones, individual actors, terrorists, or nations, in a way that can really hurt us. So, for example, Amanda, someone can be sitting in North Korea right now in their living room, in their apartment, and they don't need to be trained. They don't need to have a military background. They can arm a drone bring it into where I am, New York City, have it enter my apartment and attack this space. The technology is there already. I recently interviewed the founder of Extend Drones, and he spoke about this, and it's already being used. So there are real issues with regards to safety and privacy that we need to think about.
Nah, that's just amazing. Yes. Harrowing, but amazing. All right, you said something very important. We're in a war that we have to win, and if American ingenuity is unlocked, we're going to win it. But the last 4 years were kind of unfriendly to AI in the sense that there was energy suppression. AI takes a lot of energy. Tell us the keys to unlocking that ingenuity so that we wake up to that incredible day 3 to 5 years now and say, hey, we nailed this. We mastered it.
John, I predict that artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency will represent the single largest business sector of growth for our nation over the next 4 to 5 years. And a lot of that has to do with President Trump's point of view. What he's done through the use of executive orders is he set the table essentially for American entrepreneurs, investors, the finance community, and beyond to really put artificial intelligence into hyperdrive. So what we're going to have, which we didn't have over the past 4 years, is certainty. And a lot of that comes through regulation. During the Biden administration, they did a horrible job at providing certainty through regulation. And as a result, investment dollars moved overseas and talent, amazing programmers, engineers, etc., moved overseas. Well, what Trump is going to do now, it's going to be extremely, extremely exciting. And we're seeing the playbook kind of set now with these executive orders. He's going to put qualified experts who are knowledgeable about both the technology and the use cases for industry in a position to develop legislation that will unlock these amazing powers with regards to artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency, and really put America back in the lead position. I really feel strongly about it, John.
Pretty amazing.
Mark, before we let you go, I want to ask you, with respect to our AI war with China, it's my very rudimentary understanding that in order to build AI, in order for it to put out information, it has to bring in information from people who are using it. With respect to China, this is a country that is very limited in the information that they are allowed to consume, firewalls for practically every browser, every app out there. So how are we really in competition with China when it requires information from the people using it to import the information, but they are dealing with a limited information base to begin with? Does that make sense?
So, yep, it does. So it's an interesting, there's an interesting thing happening here where we have centralized governments versus decentralized governments. China the former, America the latter. We have centralized technologies versus decentralized technologies. But for artificial intelligence, when you think about AI, you're thinking about something called an LLM, a large language model. We've seen this with American-built technology like OpenAI, Sam Altman's business, and now with China's technology, DeepSeek. What happens in both cases is both platforms they require training. They need to learn. So the corpus of information that is accessed includes everything. Go back in history. Right now, OpenAI pretty much has taken everything they could and put it into its platform. Well, DeepSeek actually stole that information from OpenAI. They used a process, a term of art in tech called distilling. So they, for less money, were able to take all of the training information from OpenAI and build it into DeepSeek. Now, what DeepSeek does, however, is it also controls the way the information flows back to society. So the advantage that DeepSeek has over ChatGPT right now is that it's free. It became the #1 used app in America. Over 2 million people downloaded it, Amanda. And as a result, if you put in simple questions about Tiananmen Square, the Uyghurs, the premier of China, it locks. It doesn't. It won't admit, for example, that there is a Uyghur population that is essentially being held as slaves or used as slaves. It goes in a different direction. So there's a propaganda engine that is pro-Confucius theory, pro-China that comes out of DeepSeek. And if DeepSeek is being used in a ubiquitous way against democracies such as America, it could start to train the people who are using it in a way where they believe the information is valid, and that could hurt us. The other thing that's a little bit concerning, Amanda and John, is that individuals should read the use terms with regards to DeepSeek.
Oh, yes.
If you upload your information or data, you could put trade secrets, you could put photos of your family, you could put intellectual property information into DeepSeek. That information is then all stored on a server in China, and the Chinese government has access to it. It's understood that the Chinese government can access Chinese states' information on servers in China. So that is all at risk, Amanda.
Wow. What an education we just got, Mark. Everybody go get this book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. I'm going to read it this week. I'm just so fascinated, Mark. It is such a great honor to have you on. We're going to get you on more often. We got to educate our audience more. You're doing a great job doing that. We'll get you back on real soon.
It's such an honor to be with you today, John and Amanda. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, congratulations on the book. Really, really a great success. All right, folks, quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more interviews right after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. A bit of an update for you on a story that we brought you back in December. It involves Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's seat, which is expected to be vacant after she is presumably confirmed as the new ambassador to the United Nations. Now, it seems that some Democrats in New York were looking to delay the special election for who would fill her seat in November, or until November. That is Democrat shenanigans for you, but that effort is now dead in the water. So what changed for Democrats, and how is that race for Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's seat shaping up? Joining us to talk more about that, one of the candidates for that seat, Sticker Mule CEO Anthony Constantino. Anthony, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here, and I think we effectively shamed the Democrats for focusing on their party rather than on the people. That's why that thing died, and that's what we have to do. We got to shame them for their bad behavior. Their behavior is terrible. All they ever do is think about their party. The voters are starting to see it on both sides. Yeah. They're starting to see it. It's starting to become more obvious to everybody. All the Democrats want to do is help their party, which is why they're now opposed to Elon Musk getting involved in auditing government, because they're very scared that more bad things are going to be found. So the voters are seeing it. I think a lot of Democrats are waking up. They're starting to become Republicans too because of it.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And you know, this seat is held by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. It's a red area. What do you anticipate are going to be some of those issues that will make you stand out against the others heading in?
Sure. Well, I know how to solve problems better than anybody. That's all I do. I know how to solve problems and I know how to act. I'm oriented towards action. A lot of politicians are very risk averse, but except for President Trump. But I'm very oriented towards action. One of the biggest problems is our northern border, which I know very well. Another big problem is the lack of internet and cell service in the district. I think that's the easiest victory to bring economic activity back to the district and to improve quality of life and safety. But more than anything, I'm all about solving problems. I just spoke in front of 4,000 people in the largest venue in the district with Roger Stone and Jorge Masvidal. I said, I want to solve the border. I want to do cell service and internet service. I said, I also want to inspire more new blood to enter politics. And most of all, I want to bring people back to New York. Immediately after my event, Jorge Masvidal told me he wants to bring his business to New York. So within a day, I'm already starting to make good on my campaign promises.
That's pretty amazing and pretty impressive. I think there is this interesting dynamic. For a long time, I think people who are in business like, I don't want to go into government. It's a mess. It's not worth it. And then Donald Trump jumps in. Now Elon Musk jumps in. You're jumping in. That ROI mentality that a CEO, a businessman brings to it is something that government has been immune to for so long. But it seems like the perfect cure to a wayward government. Do you expect more people to jump in like you?
We want more talented people across the board, but I want people that succeeded at the highest levels. I don't just want business people. Sometimes people say, I have a business, I got 10 people. You want people that succeeded at the highest level, like Elon Musk, like a Jorge Masvidal who succeeded at the highest level in his career, like President Trump. I crossed over 1,000 employees. Maybe I'm not quite as successful as Mr. Musk, but most people don't get to 1,000 people with a privately funded company. So you want the absolute most talented people in government. All too often, people think that government is a place for less talented people to go and make money, but we want the absolute best people that are oriented towards action. You don't become as famous as a Jorge Masvidal or or you don't become Elon Musk not being oriented towards action, or you don't become myself not oriented towards action.
Great point.
Well, and you mentioned Jorge Masvidal, and speaking of CEOs, Dana White, another big supporter of President Trump. There's a common thread among people like that, and you as well. You've got problem solvers, but also industrious and entrepreneurial, but also a deep love for this country. It seems that is becoming more popular these days, especially with the Republican Party platform. How are you going to use it?
Exactly. We got to get more people like Dana involved, more people across the board involved. I'm going to inspire more people. And President Trump inspired me to get involved and push things in a positive direction. And when I get in and I do great things, I'm going to inspire other people. Not just that they can get in and be successful, but they can get in and have fun. Life's all about having fun. It's about being successful, but you can get things done and have fun at the same time. I think you're going to see more great people in politics if we make politics a little bit more fun and we show that things can get done. President Trump's having a lot of fun, too, doing his job. I think Elon is as well. Dana knows fun better than anybody. He runs one of the most fun businesses in the country. Lots of people show up all the time on a weekly basis or monthly basis to his events to have a great time. I see he's now with Mark Zuckerberg as an advisor. I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg at all, and I hope the president doesn't trust him either. But it's great to see Dana White is now with Zuckerberg, maybe making sure that he behaves correctly.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch the alliances that are now forming after the 2024 election. You said something at the start of this segment that really caught my eye, which is Democrats keep doubling down on the very thing that they just lost on in 2024. Americans said we don't like far left, we don't like cancel culture, we don't like stupid ideas, we want we the people to have a voice, and the Democrats are doubling down on everything against those notions. What is it about the Democrats that has them doubling down on something that is clearly failing with the American people?
I think it's a very simple answer. It's called stupidity. They're just not that smart.
Yeah.
We got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I think, to move the United States in a permanently Republican direction. We got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have a great commander-in-chief. We have an incredibly large number of talented people around him. The Republican Party has to perform. If we perform and do what we say we're going to do, I think the entire country is going to move in a rightward direction for a very, very long time. They say there's a pendulum and it goes back and forth, but the Democrats have no good ideas anymore. Turning little boys into little girls isn't a good idea, and some of the other things that they want to do, they're all terrible. Censorship's not a good idea. They don't want to do anything that's good anymore. All the good ideas are on the Republican side. All we have to do is execute. President Trump is executing at an incredible pace at the national level, but he can't do it all. We need people like me at the state level in New York State, executing in New York State and showing people that, look, there's no reason to vote Democrat anymore. It doesn't matter if you've been voting Democrat for the last 20 or 30 years. You have to stop. And I just talked to a guy that's really high up in New York government yesterday, and he called me and he said, Anthony, your event was incredible. I agree entirely with your platform. And by the way, I've been a Democrat my whole life. I'm not going to be a Democrat anymore. I'm changing my registration. I agree with you. This needs to change. So we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change minds permanently. We can move the country in a permanent rightward direction where all the sensible debate happens on the Republican side, but we have to perform.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does come down to performance.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, Anthony, we've just got about a minute left. When it comes to President Trump's problem-solving abilities, he obviously spent the last 4 years out of office figuring out how to solve problems. You're in a red district, but you're in a blue state. For those in your state who maybe didn't vote for him, when it comes to President Trump's problem-solving, I think that once he solves the problems, they may not like the method, but they'll like the results. How can President Trump do that so that he brings more people over?
Exactly. It's the same situation with me. It's really difficult to argue against the person that's trying to do right by everybody, and President Trump's policies benefit everybody. I'm only going to support ideas that benefit everybody. I'm on the Republican side because it's the side that makes sense, not because of some bizarre allegiance to my political party. It's not like I've been in the party my whole life or anything of that nature. It's just, I'm not here for any reason other than I want to do what's right for the people. The Republican Party is the party that's doing the right thing by the people. President Trump's doing right by the people. I don't think anyone's going to work better with the president than me due to my long-term support of him and due to my membership of Mar-a-Lago, where I'll go very quickly after getting the seat to talk to him about what we can do to make New York great again. I think President Trump wants to win in New York more than anybody. He's from here, and he'd love to see New York become red. And by the way, if New York goes red, it's going to cause a sea change in the entire country because Democrats are going to get very nervous when they see things changing here. They think this is a stronghold for them. I think we can flip it, but we got to execute. We got to do the right thing.
That'd be an earthquake, no doubt.
New York and New Jersey both would be absolute political earthquakes. Anthony Constantino, good luck in that race. We appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Yeah, great to have you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, some final thoughts from the two of us on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. It is the final segment of the show, and I want to zoom in on something that the American people, unfortunately, have become very familiar with, and that is activist judges across this country. And we are now dealing with a judge who is shooting down Doge from accessing files pertaining to the U.S. Treasury, which it seems to me that that would be one of the most important agencies for the American people to access transparency of. But Rep. Eli Crane from Arizona is going to have a word about it because he wants to, he's introducing articles of impeachment.
Yeah, think about this. A judge tells the chief of the executive branch he can't look at the executive branch's records. How silly is that? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of judges like this. There's another judge Here, Beryl Howell, who's a longtime Obama appointee, who wants to release the documents in Trump's now closed case so she can make her point, and she made very biased comments in explaining why she was doing it. These activist judges are on the front line, and Eli Crane, let's impeach one or two of them. That'll get their attention. We'll see if there's enough will in the Congress to do that. But a provocative idea about a bunch of judges who are provoking a lot of concern right now. People are really concerned that the judiciary has somehow become way too political.
Yeah. Impeaching them, I believe, would be called behavior modification. And maybe we could get judges to start acting like neutral arbiters of justice again. Wouldn't that be nice?
And justice would be blind again. It wouldn't matter who you are.
Yep.
It would simply be what you did. And I think that would be a moment we'd all like to return to in this country. It doesn't feel like we're there yet, though.
No, I don't think so. All right, I want to go back to something that we talked about with Senator Ron Johnson because it pertains to transparency in general.
Yep.
And he seems to be one of those folks who he's not going to let it go. He's not, as he reiterated to us over and over again, he's not going to let it go with Facebook. There are so many Americans out there who still feel injured, and I don't necessarily mean physically or physiologically, but they feel like their government lied to them. That's going to set things on a course for his committee, his subcommittee in the Senate, that is going to change history.
What more powerful way to say, I need these documents, than to say people died as a result of the censorship? I had not heard until today him make the connection between these people who committed suicide because their Facebook support group was taken away from them in the cancel culture moment when you couldn't question anything about the COVID vaccine. But we've always said censorship was a great threat to the American experience, but it's even a graver threat if it's causing people to kill themselves or causing death and harm. I thought it was a really powerful moment in the show, and I think it strengthens his hand. He's going to get what he wants this time. He was ignored for 3 years. He ain't getting ignored anymore.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you about President Trump and his targeting of Chinese goods, because this runs on a parallel track with the woo-woo movement. You might not realize this, but there are a lot of Americans who are very concerned about fabrics that have chemicals in them because they were produced in China, skincare, makeup, even food to some degree are medications produced in China. And this tracks very conveniently parallel with President Trump's mission to tariff goods coming in from China and maybe eliminate it altogether.
Yeah, and we talk about the president playing four-dimensional chess and make America healthy again, and China tariffs are all tied together.
Yep.
China tariffs are involved with opening up new markets, like maybe a big construction project in Gaza or a construction project rebuilding Ukraine, if you can get the Ukraine war done. And by the way, I'm hearing lots of rumblings that there could be a deal in the next couple of weeks, which is very exciting. He has his policies fit together. He had 4 years to think this through, and they're all interlocked. And I think the opposition doesn't realize how big his playing field is and how four-dimensional his strategy is.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put out a story tomorrow about that.
I like that.
I think that's a good idea. All right.
Everything she's writing. She's doing great work.
Thank you. All right. Final thing. New York City Mayor Eric Adams gave a press conference earlier.
He is grateful at what President Trump has done. And you know what? President Trump is helping a Democrat because he believes that the misuse of the law, whether it's against a Democrat or Republican, is wrong. Yeah. The evidence was always a little thin on what Mayor Adams did. The prosecutors could never do it. Now, we still have to get the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York to do this. They've been asked to do it. We'll see. But I think this will be resolved in a couple of weeks. And President Trump will have a longtime friend of the Big Apple now to get some of this other stuff done we need to get done to fix this country.
Is that particular attorney's office, has it shown recalcitrance or?
They haven't answered. They were silent in the first
past.
24 hours. Oh, absolutely. SDNY is the most famous independent office. It often marches to its own drum. It does indeed.
Independent, and sometimes in not great ways.
No.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us tonight. We will be back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate you being here with us. Have a blessed evening, and Grant Stinchfield is up next.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stinchfield. So, our buddy here at Real America's Voice, conservative mastermind Steve Bannon, just got handed another felony conviction. This one for a case President Trump actually pardoned him in at a federal level. He and others are raising money to build a border wall. We'll know that case. Prosecutors didn't like Bannon doing that, so they figured they'd just toss him in jail. This is what they do to conservatives. So, when Trump stepped in here, the state level Soros attack dogs jumped in. New York Attorney General Letitia James, just before the case was set to go to trial, she took over and Bannon then took a plea deal. No jail, no restitution, just the conviction. Why? Because they rigged the system against him. Here he is just after sentencing.
I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump. President Trump, on his Truth Social today, laid it out once again. The existential threat to his administration is this queen of lawfare, Letitia James, and how she has absolutely total control. And Doge and Elon Musk and Scott Besson and all of them ought to be worried about this out of control city.
Absolutely. They got the judges on their side, they got the juries on their side, all of it. But the fact is, for conservative flamethrowers like Steve Bannon, these types of convictions are nothing short of a badge of honor. It sucks having to take the conviction, but it is a badge of honor. It should only serve as an accommodation that you are too strong for the leftist power brokers and their henchmen. Still, no one in America should ever have to go through this. Not a president like President Trump did, and certainly not one of the president's closest confidants. Well, I want to bring in now Steve Bannon's attorney, Arthur Adila, is with us. Arthur, it is great to have you on the program. I appreciate you stopping by tonight.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, and I got to tell you, it's. I spoke to Steve. We actually had lunch afterwards, and I said, it's not that often as a criminal defense attorney with these big cases, you walk out of there feeling somewhat gratified. And today we did, because yes, you mentioned the badge of honor, and Steve is wearing that. But besides that, there's really no other ramifications of this case. And that's because, Steve didn't take any money. He didn't put anything in his pocket. He really, all he did was compensate somebody who worked very, very hard to build the wall. And they did build 3 miles of the wall. And, they had told the GoFundMe people, oh, these people aren't going to get any real money. They worked so hard. And Steve was like, it's not right. You're putting in all this time, effort, and energy. Let me compensate. At $30 million almost, we're talking about 100,000 plus. Everyone knows the case was kind of a joke, but we also know that we needed to get it out of Steve Bannon's life so that he could go on and do much bigger and better things.
Arthur, I look at these cases, especially in New York, what President Trump went through. They put the screws to you. They've got the judges on their side. As Steve Bannon said, they go to the Upper West Side and pull a radical jury. And then, of course, you've got all the money that's spent on guys like you and everything surrounding the case. It's almost like they force you to take a plea deal in these situations. Is there any truth to that?
Well, the jury issue is probably the biggest issue. We were fortunate. The judge we were in front of, to be honest, was, at least since my involvement, which has only been over the last month, she was very reasonable and very understanding about this plea and getting it out of the way. And, she handles very big cases, and she realized this is not a big case. She handles murder cases and robberies with guns and, people's homes being burglarized. And she looked at the totality of this case because she realized how minute it was. She had to approve the plea. She could have said, no, I'm not taking this. And a matter of fact, in court, she said, well, how come there's no restitution? How come he doesn't have to give any money back? And the prosecutor admitted, well, people got some money back that was ever left over. And the people who were complaining here, they donated, I think one was $50 and one was $43. So it was the biggest issue. And this is what we told everyone, and I told this to Steve, is the jury. The jury in New York County is very much against President Trump. Everyone knows the word after Trump is Bannon. And I just told him, in my years as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, I did not see his ability to get a fair trial with a jury in Manhattan.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's behind him now. And I've got to ask you, though, President Trump pardons him in the federal case that they were looking at him here. So Letitia James, I used to work for the National Rifle Association. That's enemy number 2 or 3 to her behind Steve and President Trump. So she'll go after anybody that's conservative. How does this case end up in New York? How is it a state case in New York? And then what's to stop some radical district attorney in every city across America not bringing the same case against Steve Bannon?
Well, Mr. Stinchfield, please don't give anyone any ideas. Please. I know millions of people watch your show. I don't want you to put a bee in anybody's bonnet. But, I mean, the bottom line is, number one, if anyone else was going to do this, they would have had to have done this already due to statute of limitations issues. But number two, we filed a motion last week about selective prosecution. Right to your point, that the only reason why they brought this case in the state court after he's pardoned by the president of the United States was because it was Steve Bannon, and they wanted to make a point, and they wanted to make a political point, and it's against our system of justice altogether. So, after they got that motion, that's when we got into the plea negotiations. And, look, I would like to think that the courthouse you saw Mr. Bannon just speaking in front of should be used for the purposes that it's there. That courthouse that we're looking at right now. For people who get stabbed on the subway or robbed on the subway or their cars get stolen or whatever it is, those are the crimes that are supposed to take place in there, not Steve Bannon basically compensating someone for work that they were done. And the person he compensated, who did all the work, by the way, lost 3 limbs serving this country, both legs and his arm. So I'm glad this case is out of Steve's hands. We actually got the judge to close the whole case today, the plea and the sentencing. He never has to come back to court again. And I'm very optimistic he'll go on to do the things that he really wants to do to serve this country.
And I would take a last question for you. This should have no effect on Steve's ability to do what he does best, and that is advise conservatives of how we move forward as a nation, advise President Trump, and put on a fabulous show just about every platform he's on.
Not only conservatives, but populists like Steve Bannon is.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, Arthur Adela. It's great having you on the program. Thank you, and good work, and please tell Steve congratulations on getting this behind him for us.
Thank you. I'll tell you, it was a delight dealing with Steve. He was actually a very excellent client. He's a very smart man who was very reasonable, and I feel like we worked very well together. It really was a pleasure helping him out.
Well, he's a good guy. I've known him for a while, and I reiterate the same thing. He is certainly a good man and a great patriot. We're glad that's over with for him. All right. We still have very big problems, though, right? We've got a federal government that has employees that are completely out of control. I'm sure you heard now, we have 4 FEMA employees that have been fired for sending $59 million to luxury hotels in New York City last week after President Trump said, put a freeze on the money. Do not send the money. That is clear insubordination. And these FEMA employees have been fired. Here is a former administrator, this is Kristi Noem talking about the FEMA employees. Roll it.
If the president came to you and said, you're my DHS secretary, do you think I should get rid of FEMA? Get rid of FEMA, what would you say?
I would say yes, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today. We still need the resources and the funds and the finances to go to people that have these types of disasters like Hurricane Helene and the fires in California. But you need to let the local officials make the decisions on how that is deployed so it can be deployed much quicker, and we don't need this bureaucracy.
All right, so this is about a deep-seated disdain for President Trump's position of power as the commander-in-chief. Yes, I said it's insubordination. I actually believe it is criminal in nature when you send this money out after a direct order. This is taxpayer dollars going to something that it shouldn't be going to, illegal aliens in New York City, when we have people, wildfires, hurricanes, that are still suffering, American citizens, and not getting anything. Then it brings us to the story about the FBI. We know how bad the FBI is. We know that there are so many agents inside the FBI that do not believe in the America First agenda. Now, with that caveat, I do believe there are agents inside that agency that do believe in the America First agenda. You're going to have to separate them. Because right now, the prime suspect in leaking these locations of ICE raids, logistics of ICE raids to the media and people in many of these cities they're going to. The prime suspects are FBI agents themselves. We can't have that happening. The LA Times today wrote a piece about another ICE raid coming to Los Angeles and giving all kinds of details about it. This is Tom Hallman saying it's got to stop.
We think it's come from inside, and we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person under investigation right now. The California leak, Secretary Noem, she's correct. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI. But I talked to the Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they're going to go to jail.
As well they should be, because you're putting agents in danger from the ATF, ICE agents, even FBI agents if they're involved, DEA agents. You're putting all of them in danger by giving up the details of this. And, of course, you're putting the public in danger because these very violent illegal aliens who are wanted for violent crimes are going to get away. How do you call yourself a law enforcement officer and leak this kind of information to put your fellow officers in danger? Well, joining me now is a retired FBI agent. He's known for whistleblowing on the agency, speaking the truth. Steve Gray is with us. Steve, welcome to the program.
Hey, Grant Howard. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Steve. I'm just baffled that FBI agents are the prime suspects and leakers in this case. Can you explain this to me?
I can. This is very dangerous. We're talking about men and women that have families, and to leak this type of information is so dangerous to those individuals that are going out looking for these gang members. But this actually goes all the way back to the Comey years. When Comey was in office, and then it continued under Wray, there was a huge push to hire substandard agents and also support personnel. And when I say that, I mean the FBI lowered their recruiting standards to allow other individuals who would not have ever been considered for a position within the FBI to get in. We had individuals showing up for interviews in flip-flops and jeans, and these were agent positions. Now, from what I understand, almost 45 to 48% of the FBI workforce was hired under Comey and Wray at this time. So now what we have is, and it's very unfortunate, but we have a lot of activist FBI agents, a lot of activist FBI employees, and unfortunately, we have a lot of people that work within the FBI who work in roles from other law enforcement agencies and federal agencies that work within the FBI as well, who have access to this information, who also could have been hired under the same rules. So this problem is only going to get worse. It's not going to get better unless they really bring the hammer down and make an example of this individual. From what I understand, there have been arrests made concerning these leaks. And I understand that they're right now getting ready to really bring the hammer down through the Justice Department. These individuals are going to lose everything.
So that's some breaking news on the program you bring to us, Steve Gray. So you believe that there have been arrests made. Could you tell us what part of the country they're for, what office they're coming out of?
I don't have that information. I only have the information through my sources that there was an arrest made. And that comes from a reliable source. The individual, I do not know if it's an FBI agent or if it's a support employee. And again, these individuals that work in support have the same type of information that the FBI does because they're the ones that are helping the FBI agents gather the intelligence before they go out on the street to arrest these gang members.
Steve, how hard is it going to be for Kash Patel, once he gets in as director of the FBI, and I do believe he will finally get confirmed, even though they're doing everything they can do to stall him, to root out the agents? It's not even agents that are committing crimes, but you've got agents in there that I believe are not on board with the America First agenda. They were part of the Biden DOJ that did not agree with the things that President Trump agrees with. How hard is it going to be to root those people out and get them out of that agency so we can build this agency back up to the glory it once possessed?
I don't think it's going to be that hard at all. I had put something out on Twitter or X the other day. You basically need to go to the good agents that are working in the FBI offices across the nation, and they will point out the bad agents. It's as simple as that. Good agents don't want to work with bad agents. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And until these bad agents are weeded out, the FBI is going to have continued problems. The only problem I foresee is that the FBI needs to, again, bring their standards up to the highest level possible and only bring in the best candidates that they can.
Yeah. Look, it's great advice, and honestly, it's common sense advice. This should be going for every agency in the country, at every level of government, by the way. Bring in the best that you possibly can. And I think diversity, equity, and inclusion bit them in the keister, and I think we're getting away from that funnily with President Trump, so hopefully we'll see some action. But I hope and pray, Steve Gray, that no agent and no member of the public gets hurt over these leaks, that somebody knows something and somebody ends up dying or getting killed over it. It's great having you on the program, as always. I appreciate that, and thanks for breaking some news with us tonight.
Thanks, Grant. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. You too. So it looks like at least one arrest, and from a good source. We'll follow that one for you for sure. All right, turning on a totally different subject, but one that's very important to President Trump and all of you. That is diversity, equity, and inclusion. What about DEI in the media and Hollywood? Well, now there is signs that PBS has decided to do away with some of its DEI offices. Also, we are told that Disney is doing away with some of its DEI offices, including the Disney Reimagine Tomorrow program, which was designed to, quote, amplify undervalued and underreported voices. That, of course, would be LGBTQ nonsense. You're looking at their website for the Reimagine Tomorrow initiative. That website is still up, even though in their SEC filings they say they're going to be doing away with this. What does all this mean? Are we finally going to get back to the business of not having to deal with executives like this? Here's a little flashback of Disney and what they're up to.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child. Sex stood up and said, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. I, as a leader, and me as my colleagues would not have focused on. And going forward, I certainly will be more so. I know that we will be.
Whatever. That's a Disney executive. And by the way, she's got a trans kid and a queer kid, in her words. What is the statistical chances of that happening? I'm going to tell you it's slim to none. There's a problem in parenting going on in that household. All right, folks. With me now, founder of Hollywood in Toto, conservative film critic Christian Toto is with us. Christian, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Welcome back.
Yeah. Good to chat.
All right. What does this mean for Disney, PBS, entertainment industry in general?
Well, for Disney, it's very interesting because 2 years ago, Disney's CEO said, we want to quiet the noise in the culture war front. And I was pretty darn skeptical, as were many people, but we are actually seeing that happening almost in real time with Disney. The past year we had Moana 2 and Inside Out 2. These are old school, traditional Disney style stories, and they were huge hits. So we're seeing less overt political content from the Mouse House. We're also seeing the fact that they just canceled a character within a new Disney Plus series that was a trans child character. So they're starting to understand that this is really impacting their bottom line. Now, the year before, Disney got massacred at the box office. It was flop after flop after flop. They were drifting away from their core mission, which is just entertainment for the whole family. So I'm not shocked by this. It's certainly a welcome development to see this happening at Disney. But, there are many stories about behind the scenes at Disney where the corporate culture is infested with this kind of DEI thinking. So will that go away overnight? I don't know if that's possible, but I think we're seeing movement in the right direction.
My question would often be, Is it the consumer that's driving it, or is it the investor that's driving it? And honestly, they're both connected, because the investor's not going to be happy if the consumer is not happy. And so you see this pressure from the investor side of it, but I've got to believe that's actually coming from public outrage.
Yeah, I think it is. It's sort of a both situation. And listen, the bottom line is the bottom line. I think when you see your bottom line suffering as a result of this kind of content, you've got to course correct. But you have to kind of take a step back and look at the big picture in Hollywood. The industry is struggling right now. The fires, the strikes, COVID, streaming is not making as much money as they thought it would. So you have an industry that's really been hemorrhaging cash, and they can't afford to be kind of cute about the bottom line. They can't afford to lose all this money. So I think that's why they're moving this direction. When we talk about DEI principles and philosophies and programming, it just doesn't make economic sense. And they just can't afford it any longer. So, for all the reasons culturally, for the pressure by President Trump, by the realities on the ground, I think that's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Does Disney, last question for you, have any big projects that a lot of this bottom line is going to hinge on coming up? Anything we should be looking out after?
Well, I mean, they've got more MCU-style movies. Actually, this weekend, we have a new Captain America film opening up. There's a Fantastic Four movie coming in the summertime. So there's always stuff on the pipeline. Disney has a load of really important IP, intellectual properties, Inside Out. You've got The Incredibles. You've got all these different properties and titles. They can bank on them. They can sequelize them. They can reboot them. So I think they'll be fine. And again, they're moving in a proper direction about pure entertainment. They've kind of gotten the message from their investors and also just from the average public. The Disney brand has taken a significant hit, and I think they're in recovery mode now.
Well, they deserve to take the hit, and if there's any sign of them getting the message, that certainly is a good thing. Christian Toto, thank you for coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Look, the IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and it just stepped up enforcement for 2025. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, do not wait for the IRS to come after you. Getting ahead of this is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Turn it over to the team at Tax Network USA. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS. This means that they know which agents to deal with and which to avoid. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAF. All right, President Trump has given Hamas until noon Saturday to turn over all of the hostages. Will they comply? Next. back, everyone. We've got new developments going on in Gaza. Well, President Trump hosted the King of Jordan today in Washington, D.C., meeting him in the Oval Office. But before we get to that, I want to talk about what's going on in Gaza. President Trump says, Hamas, you got till noon Saturday. And if you don't release all the hostages, by my count, there's at least 76 left. At least. There's going to be hell to pay. This is President Trump.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2.
Exactly, Mr. President. They should have been released all at once the last time around. Now, there is a deal in place. Hamas said that you need to respect the deal. First off, Hamas is not in a position to dictate anything to President Trump, who's got the mightiest, most powerful military on his side. Hamas then says threats have, quote, no value and only complicate the situation. Oh, really? It's going to get very complicated when there's a ballistic missile going through their forehead. I don't think that President Trump is fooling around here. Hamas clearly is not taking them seriously. Now, for the issue of Gaza, President Trump is very steadfast that America is going to take this over. Listen.
What money are you going to use to buy Gaza? We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things.
Look, here's the major challenge. You got Hamas, right? And with Hamas, they're not going to give it up easy. You've got at least 2 million Palestinians are going to need to be moved. I don't know what country's going to take them, because Jordan says right now they're not going to take them. Then there's a situation with Egypt. Egypt says, but maybe President Trump says they will take them. The problem with Jordan taking them is that Jordan had a group of the Muslim Brotherhood that came in and took over a political party, and now they're the majority in their version of the House of Representatives. This is frightening stuff going on in the Middle East. Here's the King of Jordan, who met with President Trump today, said he'd take sick kids, but he's not taking all these Palestinians. Cut 3.
The president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
And is there a parcel of land in Jordan that you're willing to have Palestinians?
Well, I think what we said, I have to look at the best interests of my country. I think the president is very happy that we do this thing with 2,000 children as quickly as possible. And again, I believe that the president is looking forward to getting a group of us Arabs here to discuss the overall plan.
Look, Jordan's a small enough country. You bring in 2 million Palestinians, you could tip the balance of power there. That king has a real issue to deal with on his hands. How do you navigate all of this? Well, with me now, former foreign policy advisor to President Trump, author and Newsmax contributor, Dr. Waleed Phares is with us. Doctor, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me today.
All right, so how do we navigate this? What do you see as an outcome here?
Well, first of all, you made a great assessment. Jordan cannot. Jordan in a very critical position. They are pro-Western. They are anti-jihadists. They fought with us against ISIS. Pilots were burned alive, and their civilians are always under attack. So, and now, on top of that, you have that change in Syria. And there is a jihadi army marching from Damascus all the way to the borders with Jordan. So we need to coordinate with the Jordanians. They said they may take children or other individuals, but it's really Egypt where the discussion is very serious with. Some even are talking about a position or an area inside the northern Sinai, which is 3 times the size of Gaza. But the Egyptians also are concerned for the same reason, the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah. They are concerned that Hamas will go in and be part of a campaign to bring down the government in Egypt. They tried to do so in the Sinai. And then, of course, you have Saudi Arabia that has the tools, that has the money, that has the leadership. At the end of the day, what President Trump is trying to do is to resolve something that nobody else wanted to resolve. And at the end of the day, they're going to be negotiating with him.
Look, President Trump is great at going to the most common sense solution. And the most common sense solution right now is the Palestinians have to get off the southern border of Israel. That situation is not working. Then you have to figure out, where do they go? How do you move them out of there? Is that even possible? And the situation with Hamas. Nobody's talking about, you move all these Palestinians. The Palestinians really support Hamas. Many of them are members of Hamas. What do you do with them? I know Israel wants them wiped out. I would like to see Hamas wiped out, but I'm not sure that happens. If you start moving people, they blend in, and next thing you know, they pop up someplace else.
It's a very complex matter, and what the president has said is not all what he will be saying. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But everybody, Israel, Arab moderates, the United States, others in the region, they have one thing in common. They don't want Hamas. Hamas will have to be disbanded at the end of the day. And I think the issue of hostages is the last straw, is the last reason for why Hamas still has a piece of its militia there. But listen, there are other possibilities. Some of the possibilities is one group of that community will go and then be funded in northern Sinai, for example, while the other one is waiting. The details, Trump is the expert on those details. I mean, anything has to do with real estate, but this is more than real estate. This is communities, this is future, this is de-radicalization.
Let me play one more clip from President Trump, because maybe it gives us some insight into how he responds to Hamas. Listen to this.
You know bullies? You know what a bully is, right? You know the bully, I've always, and I found it throughout my life, a bully is the weakest person. And they're bullies. Hamas is bullies. The weakest people are bullies. You know that, right?
So what do we take from that, Doctor? Do we believe that President Trump, come noon and 1 minute on Saturday, if the hostages aren't released, is Gaza even destroyed more than it already is?
We never know. Maybe the bosses or the bosses of Hamas will be hit. It doesn't have to be Hamas themselves. First, we have to extract them from the population. The Israelis tried, we may try, but we may go much higher. We may tell the Ayatollahs in the Islamic Republic of Iran, Islamic regime of Iran, if you don't have them release those hostages, our business will be with you, Islamic regime of Iran. And that's more than we can say at this point in time.
I know they've talked about cutting electricity, cutting water off, cutting humanitarian aid off on Saturday. Maybe they start with that and then put the pressure down. I'll ask you this last question. You've advised President Trump. If he put you in the office and you're sitting there with him and he says, hey, what should I do Saturday afternoon if those hostages aren't released? What would you advise him to do?
I'll tell you on Sunday, because what I will advise him to do cannot be released now. There are multiple plans, but the most important one is what he's doing. He's messaging the Egyptians are coming, the Saudis will come, the Jordanian, the king was here, as we see on the screen. So he's in the right direction. Everybody, I'm going to repeat one more time, everybody in the region do not want Hamas. President Trump is the only one who will take action, and with the Israelis, of course.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight. It's always a pleasure having you on, and really tremendous look at this very complicated situation. We're praying for the people of Israel, that's for sure. Really the entire Middle East and the law-abiding people there that are under the thumb of some really, really bad dudes out there. Thank you, sir, for coming on, as always.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We will be looking at it, and boy, President Trump's going to have some real decisions to make come Saturday. He said all hell will break loose. That's not cutting the water, all hell. All hell is all hell, and I think we all know what that means, and I would not count President Trump out to carry through with that threat. All right, grass-fed beef liver is one of the greatest concentrations of nutrients you can add to your diet. It plays a vital role in supporting your heart, brain, and immune system while boosting energy and improving overall health. Sacred Humans beef liver capsules offer a natural alternative to synthetic multivitamins, providing nutrients in the form your body knows how to use efficiently. Here's what you do. Visit sacredhumanhealth.com. Do it today and use code PATRIOT for 10% off and explore their full range of all natural supplements. All right. The left is losing it over Doge, calling it a constitutional crisis. What in the world are they talking about? Welcome back, everyone. So, I told you last night that the new talking points would be constitutional crisis. And lo and behold, what are they all talking about? A constitutional crisis, a crisis that doesn't actually exist. See, the president has executive authority to run his agencies as he sees fit. The Democrats love to usurp the Constitution. I love that they call it a constitutional crisis when they have no respect for the Constitution whatsoever. They have a history of no respect. They don't even call our country a constitutional republic. They call it a democracy because they can't even say the word Constitution unless they want to accuse somehow President Trump of going against it, which is all bogus. Here they are. Constitutional crisis. Roll it. Cut 2.
We are 3 weeks into the second Trump presidency, 3 weeks, and tonight there are warnings that the U.S. is dangerously close to a constitutional crisis.
This is the thing people should keep their eye on because this flies in the face of our Constitution, and that's where people should be enraged.
Yeah. We'll do the same thing in the House. This is a constitutional crisis.
I mean, what we are witnessing is a constitutional crisis.
Explain to me how cutting spending is a constitutional crisis, and explain to me how these Democrats continue to be out there spouting off when the American people are saying, you know what, we're getting hosed. It's not a constitutional crisis. Now there's talk about should President Trump defy court orders. Joe Biden did it. We know that presidents push the boundaries. Joe Biden ignored the student loan orders. Democrats are the ones who are cheering Joe Biden for that. Now all of a sudden it's a constitutional crisis. I want to bring in founder of Typhoon Capital. He is an expert and financial litigator. James Katulis is with us. James, welcome to the program.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, James. So is this a constitutional crisis?
I think crisis is a strong word. I think we've got a constitutional discussion here, maybe some constitutional conflict. I don't think it's a crisis. I think that the vast majority of Americans, at least those who aren't benefiting from the corruption that we've seen Elon and Doge unearth at USAID, they all want this to happen. Right now, will there be some legal machinations? Sure. Do I think the court order from a New York federal court where it was unilateral, it didn't have motions filed, it didn't have the Trump administration given the ability to respond, do I think that's a binding order? Absolutely not.
All right, so that's interesting. So not a binding order, and here's what I see happens, is you get these liberals who go judge shopping. There's like 600 federal judges at this level. You can go into a blue state and you can shop these cases around and you can get a judge to side with you and then the order goes down. And then we're supposed to follow an order that is not even based in law. Is that basically what you're telling me here?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what the liberals are trying to do. And before I got on, you mentioned how the Biden administration defied court orders. Well, the Biden administration defied the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court actually has authority to restrict the executive branch. A federal court in a unilateral proceeding does not have that authority. So, the last thing I want to do is advocate that the Trump administration, break the law or do something that's improper, but heretofore, I have not seen them do anything improper. Now, the one challenge I think we might see, with Doge is who established these various line items that it means to cut. Were they established by an act of Congress? Were they specifically established, or were they established as part of a general discretionary budget where they were then enacted by an executive branch? Right. So if it's an executive agency that has then initiated the spending, Trump is the head of the executive branch. He could cut those orders. Now, if they're line items that are specifically allocated by Congress, then I think that's a bigger fight, because Clinton tried to get a line item veto passed back in like the 90s, and that was struck down as unconstitutional. So I think
I think one of the issues that you're going to be able to get around the idea, and I'm with you, that Congress does control the purse strings. So if they do budget something directly, it's going to be hard to stop that from being spent unless there is fraud involved. So that's where the executive office would have an ability to say, you know what, pause these payments. And in many respects, that's what President Trump has used the term. We're pausing the payments to see what's fraud and what's not. I think that would hold up in court, James.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of fights here. Like a couple years ago, Elon posted that, he wanted to build a legal street fighting task force. Well, this administration is going to need a legal street fighting task force, the likes of which the world has never seen, to stop that. Because, you've had billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars being spent what looks like improperly. So people aren't going to give away this free money without a fight. The swamp has subsisted off of this graph for years. So we're going to have to fight to get rid of it.
Well, we're fighting, and President Trump is putting up a fight. James Katoulis, I appreciate you coming on and weighing in on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This whole issue of constitutional crisis, it was amazing. Steve Bannon, after coming out of court, in many respects, he faced a constitutional crisis. It's what he said. He held up the paper. Listen, look at this.
See this headline right here? Trump causes constitutional crisis. Trump causes constitutional crisis. Showdown emerges of the limits of his power. Let me be blunt. And this is a lesson here. The existential threat to President Trump's administration is not in federal court.
No. It's in local courts, is what he said. All across the country, radical district attorneys and judges and juries that are trying to stop President Trump, his confidants, every step of the way. That's where we've lost our judicial system. All right, folks. We are doing our part to make America healthy again. That is next. back, everyone. I don't know if you were watching the Super Bowl, but there was a commercial that I thought was going to be a Make America Healthy Again commercial, talking about weight loss and unhealthy dyes in foods. And I thought, boy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. must have put a commercial out. And then you know what came out? It was an Ozempic commercial. They literally tried to hijack the MAHA movement, and Ozempic runs this commercial, literally talking about how bad Big Pharma is, and then Big Pharma pushes this weight loss supplement on you. I can tell you this, Ozempic, from the doctors I talked to, is very, very dangerous medication. It's meant for diabetes and makes you lose muscle mass. I just saw a study on the Today Show that it was having people suffer with all kinds of problems with their eyes and all kinds of craziness. So there are good products out there, and there are products that will help you stay away from Big Pharma. All natural products. What am I talking about? Well, I want to bring in from Pure Health Research, Dr. Holly Lucille is with us. Dr. Lucille, it's great to see you.
Grant, thank you so much for having me back. It's always great to see you. One of my faves. You do such a great job. Really, really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. You're kind. You keep saying that. We'll keep having you back, of course. So look, all natural, healthy. It really is true. The goal is to never see Big Pharma with Pure Health Research, correct?
You know what? Absolutely. I don't know if you know this about me, but my parents were both pharmacists, and I just kind of split and run the other way. I thought the take this to medicine and healthcare, even as a young child, was never something that I attuned to. And yes, premium natural ingredients that are, let me tell you this, they're effective. They do the job. If you go to Pure Health Research's website, which we're going to talk about, purehealthresearch.com, and you look at any of their 40 plus SKUs or products, right? They'll show you the ingredients in them, but with each ingredient, based on the condition that we're trying to care for, they will show you a clinical study. So we're not just talking about safe. We're not just talking about effective. We are talking about natural. And here's the thing in America. You can't patent something that's natural. And that's why Big Pharma goes crazy when the natural product industry and more natural-minded medicine practitioners are getting some traction with consumers because it's going to hit their profit. So it's profit for people.
Where's a good place to start on the website? It's purehealthresearch.com. That's purehealthresearch.com. You know, you get 40 SKUs and you want to be healthy and you start looking at all this stuff. Where do you tell people to start?
You know, I think the thing we've been talking about a lot on this show is the liver health formula. So I think that's one of the most important. It's a fan favorite. As the name implies, this formula supports your liver. The liver does over 500 different functions a day in your body. And it's something that's under assault from, yes, our compromised soil, our compromised food chain, but also sometimes our own compromised choices. So sugar, absolutely, but it can help reduce those fat deposits. It can help ignite metabolism. When there's struggle with weight loss, we have to look to the liver, and not a lot of docs are doing that or telling their people to do that. So the liver health formula, I would say the second, lymph system support. Anybody who's dealing with fluid retention, because the lymph carries out those toxins, is also amazing. And then Grant, during the pandemic, we understood that only 12% of the United States population was metabolically healthy. So blood sugar control out of range, adding to cardiovascular risk and all of that. So they have another amazing bestseller. It's called the Blood Sugar Formula. Lots of stuff to look at, but those three things I think are at the top of my list.
Well, I know sugar could be a killer. So Blood Sugar Formula, what does that actually do? How does that help you?
Yeah, so there's different natural ingredients that can help, like even if you are not on your best behavior when it comes to controlling your diet. And diet by definition just means, how do you habitually nourish yourself? What do you take in day in through liquids, through food, and nourish yourself? It's all about nourishment. So there's natural ingredients that can actually help that blood sugar not spike, stay more stable, and therefore you're not having that insulin resistance, right? That leads to the metabolic it's the X, Y, and Z. It's the cardiometabolic panel. It is the blood sugar that's elevated. Your hemoglobin A1C will go up, and that's an average of your blood sugar over 3 months. And so this is something that can help that. It makes it easier also to stay away from those tempting sweets, so it decreases those sugar cravings, just like the drug that you mentioned before, but more in a natural, effective way.
Yeah, that would be great news for people out there, because the cravings are most certainly very, very real. Dr. Holly Lucille, it's great having you on. So your parents were pharmacists, and here you are with Pure Health Research. My parents were liberals, and now I'm on Real America's Voice. So we go opposite directions, and that's why we have you on the program. Let me tell people how they can find you and Pure Health Research. It's super easy. purehealthresearch.com, okay? Save 50% on your order with coupon code Stinchfield, STINCHFIELD. Check it out today. All right, coming up, we're going to have something absolutely fabulous for you. I promise you. I see Dana Bash there. What could she be talking about? We'll see next. You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Scan the QR code and start streaming RAV anywhere you want.
Real America's Voice, available whenever you need us.
It's never been easier to stay connected with the voices you trust.
RAV on iHeart means you can take us with you wherever you go.
This is huge. The truth on iHeart. Ready whenever you are.
From Charlie Kirk to Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec to Grant Stinchfield, you'll find all your favorite RAV hosts in one place.
You can listen on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or Amazon. RAV is now available everywhere you get your podcasts. All you need to do is scan the QR code right now.
Download the iHeart app today and get ready for Real America's Voice.
Scan the QR code and join the RAV movement.
You know, President Trump is the leader of, obviously, America and, of course, his administration. And the administration takes on attributes of the leader, like trolling. Did Elon Musk really change